Hey, Tadie here from the Online Seller Circle, and within this video we're going to talk about the business overview, so how you can take the steps in order to fully systemize and automate your online arbitrage business. Now, business systemization will enable you to create repeatable systems and processes within your business to manage the operations of that business, and enable you really to continuously streamline those processes and improve on them over time, ultimately to allow your business to thrive and also allow you to gain a considerable amount of scale once you've completely systemized. Because once you've systemized yourself, the processes that you do in your business, that then will enable you to document steps via documentation, so Word docs, sheets, video tutorials, for example, of all the processes and the operations that you complete on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis, so that any third party that you use to help progress your business, but also the team members that you bring into the business as well, will enable them to follow the exact same systems that you have done in order to grow and scale that business, and to do it the right way. And this can be absolutely life-changing. This is where you're suddenly not working in the business once you're growing your team and you're using third-party businesses, people around you to help kind of reach that end goal, where you're removing yourself, you're looking more strategically at the business, and also giving you back the flexibility and the time in doing that. So within this video we're going to talk about the 5 key, or the 5 core areas that I call, that enables you to understand the business systemization and the automation steps in a bit more detail. And this is documented here on this table. So the first one we've got is the business objective. The second one we have is the business resources. The third one is the business documentation, so the documents you're going to need throughout every single area of your business. The fourth one is the business systems, so the processes for each core area of the business. What do you need in order to completely systemize? What are the steps required to complete each of those tasks within that area? And then also looking at the business management as well. Take the first step. So the first one is the business objective. So what are your expectations for the business? Where are you currently now? Where do you want to be? And if you've got a 12-month goal, okay, that's brilliant. What's your 3-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? Start to think about what it is ultimately, your big why you're doing this, but ultimately then how you're going to get to those targets. So you need to have goals set, and they need to be quite systemized in terms of what is it for the first 3 months, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. But from an overall perspective in terms of business planning, actually what are you going to achieve or want to achieve for you and the business within the next 12 months? What's your 3-year plan and what's your 5-year plan? And the best thing to do is to kind of mind map. So get a flip chart, pen and paper, do it on a mind mapping software tool online, so that you've got access to that remotely, and you can add to that as you go along. But really be clear about what is your ultimate goals, and then what are your expectations. And you want to make sure that you're setting clear and realistic expectations of what it is that you can achieve throughout that time plan. Not only that, also think about once you've gone through the complete steps, and we're going to document this within tutorials and videos going forward, going through each of these: resources, documents, systems, and business management. Once you've achieved absolutely everything, what's then the expectations of those individuals and you and the systems that you put in place? What can you achieve with this business? At the moment, what are your sales targets? So what are you achieving at the moment? What are you wanting to achieve within the next month and the next 30 days, and so on and so forth? What's your end year goal for the financial period? And then how are you going to set, and what are those targets you're going to set yourself for the next financial year? And as you start to systemize this business and you bring in more third-party services, software, but also as you onboard team members to start to work in the business for you within either the sourcing, reviewing, purchasing, etc. areas, you'll start to gain a lot more efficiency as long as you've got everything in place, and you'll start to scale very quickly indeed, because your headspace is a lot more clearer. You've got people working and doing the work for you, and you're able to see the results a lot quicker, and also continually improve on those areas that they're working in as well. So be very clear on what your sales targets have been, what they should be, and what they need to be going forward. Also your profit and your ROI targets. So your set criteria for sourcing products, your set criteria for purchasing products as well. It's very important that you've got this absolutely nailed, that you understand what they are, so that then the team members that are doing that job and need that criteria, need those targets from a product perspective, and also a sourcing and purchasing perspective, know what they're working against and what they're working in line with and what your expectations are. And also you need to be clear when you have team members that you ensure that you communicate what the business values are. So what your values are as a seller, as a company, what's your core values. And normally a company would have kind of 3 to 5 maximum core values. So what is it that you want to do? Do you want to change the customer's lifestyle with the type of products that you sell? And kind of that's similar to what Amazon offers. They want to provide an exceptional customer service, be able to provide customers with all the products that they need within various categories online, and to be able to ship them to those customers that purchase very quickly in line with their shipping criteria and the principles that they've set for their staff to excel, abide by, and work towards. Look at quarterly focus when you're thinking about your targets. So Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. So Q1 being January to March. What's the expectations during that period from a sales perspective, from a sourcing perspective, from a business systemization perspective? What areas of your business can you focus on? Because January to March, generally the sales are a lot lower in that Q1 period in comparison to Q2, Q3, and then Q4 is where the magic happens, and we sometimes do more in terms of sales than what in that quarter than what we actually would do within any other quarter or quarters combined for that year. So really understanding and focusing on kind of the times of year when the sales happen, the methods that you're utilizing to obviously source and sell those products in as well. In your business plan. So this all is self-encompassing. So expectations, targets, where you see yourself in the business, where you see the business going, how many people you see onboarding within your business during that period of time, and what's the plan, when should you do that. So we talked about the quarterly focus. So obviously Q1, January to March, it's all about kind of planting seeds, so finding new sourcing methods. Perhaps you might also want to look to start recruitment and then onboarding and training during that period for new staff. But also January to March, you may want to take out some refresher training for the current staff that you've got on board, refocus, realign what they're doing, how can you make it more efficient. So looking at your processes and continuously looking to improve on those. Again, you might want to into Q2, obviously sales and sourcing starts to take a higher demand from a customer perspective, so you'll see more sales during April, May and June. But you also might want to look at additional training, especially for the new people that you've brought on board during that Q1 period, but also looking at your business documentation and the resources that you're using for the business. Do you really need them? How, if you are using them, how can they be more efficient? Could you feed back to the software providers if they're not providing you with a certain feature that you've seen that would be really beneficial? But also from an in-house perspective, what documents and resources are you using? Take feedback from your personnel, take feedback from your business partner. How can you streamline it even further and make it more efficient? And don't be shy if you're doing something at the moment that you think, God, this is really time consuming. or perhaps that's missing a step, to actually kind of take a view on it. Do you really need to do it? If you do, how can you automate it and make it even more efficient than it is now? Taking control of that documentation, that training, you've implemented it. And really Q3, from a business perspective, you want to really look at streamlining. So this is July and August. And this is whilst you're doing this simultaneously to maintaining the operations of sourcing and purchasing and selling, inventory control, etc. So really during this period, what you want to do is become quicker within the operations. So especially if you've taken on any new personnel, you have adapted a specific system or a task, for example. You may not be using a CRM, so a project management based software such as Asana, and that would be a good time to implement that and ensure everyone that's got access to it understands how to use it and understands how to communicate through it as well. And obviously you being the main individual, the most senior person within the business, also understands and communicates effectively throughout the team. And then the final quarter, Q4, as we all know, is to maximize profits as much as possible. Now, in Q4, there is a lead up to that. So you do need to make sure during Q2, Q3, if capital allows, that you're starting to purchase stock that you can hold and potentially resell for the Q4 period. And that's going across all categories that you are available to sell in, but also making sure before that period, if you are gated in certain categories, brown restricted, for example, during that lead up, you want to really kind of look and see how you can open up and unlock more opportunities, so that during that Q4 period, you then have access to as many sources of reselling opportunity as possible, so you can completely capitalize on the demand that there is there from a customer perspective during that period, and really that you and your team members, if you've got team members working for you, are absolutely fully focused. They understand everything that they need to do from a problem solving perspective, as well as making sure that obviously they understand their planned tasks and their key performance indicators for that period, so that everyone can work in unison to achieve a fantastic result at the end of that Q4 period. In order for you to completely achieve the business objective and those expectations, the targets, etc., there obviously needs to be a plan in place, but you need access to resources. So in terms of business resources, we're talking about personnel. So what personnel do you need in order to fully systemize and automate this business? And we'll go into a lot more detail about that on a future video, where we go into detail about each area of the business, how many you should have, what they should be doing, etc. And we'll also look at the systems for each of those. So think about the personnel that you've got at the moment, and also what do you need in order to achieve a fully systemized and automated and outsourced arbitrage business. Software and services. So there are compulsory software and services that you need to use, and that your personnel will also need to have access to as well. So what are you using at the moment? What are you paying for at the moment that actually is probably not a necessity, or that you don't often use, and where can you save money? Now, don't go ahead and just cancel everything, but really analyze how much is it costing you. Are you using it effectively? Does it provide you with the features and the functions that you need on a daily basis to operate? Is it efficient enough? Is there something else out there that's more efficient and that's accessible to you, either at the same price, maybe a cheaper price, but if it's more expensive, is it going to give you a lot more value and enable you to have multiple user access if that's required, in order to reach that and achieve that goal? Communication, really important. So if you're currently on your own at the moment, you do need to think about how you're going to communicate with the third parties, such as a prep center. What do they use? If you're going to have a team, sourcing team, a business, senior business management team, if you've got a business partner, how are you communicating at the moment? We've all got access to mobile devices nowadays and desktops, and there's lots of software, communication software out there. And sometimes it can be quite time consuming, because if you're communicating on WhatsApp, and then you're communicating with another member on Slack, and then you're communicating with someone else on Asana, and then WhatsApp, it becomes quite it's not systemized, it's not streamlined, and also you become almost too busy serving communication from various different kind of methods or avenues, whereas actually what you want to do is consolidate and make sure that you are using one place, if you can, two at most, but one place, so everyone within your business knows if they need to get hold of you or their manager, if you've got a manager working for you and is in charge of that team, how are they going, what method of communication are they going to use, what is the set kind of criteria for that, is it during working hours, what happens if it's outside of working hours and they're sick or whatever and they need to get hold of someone, what's the contingency method there. So think about that, but make it efficient so that you are not run ragged communicating via different kind of communication channels. Look at other resale platforms as well. Now, this isn't advisable initially because your main platform for resale is going to be Amazon, but we will cover a pricing and inventory the system in a later video, and we'll also look at other avenues in which you can resell stock on the basis that, let's just say, you need to recall the products, you can't sell them on Amazon, so what other online platform opportunities are available to you that you might need access to, and that could be Facebook Marketplace, it could be eBay, for example, and we'll go into a bit more detail. Think about the business documents that you need to have external business documents, such as accountant documents that you're going to need access to from third-party individuals, but also other third-party services that you utilize, that you might need their business documents to use in your business because they're the creator of them as well. So what is it that you're using at the moment? And then also, as we go through this video tutorial library of systemization and automation, is looking at what it is that you'll need to if you're taking on new and additional third-party services. Business documentation. So this is really important. If you don't have business documentation in your business at the moment, and everything is up here, you're going to really struggle to bring on individuals and get them to work efficiently for you, or even liaise with third-party service providers in order to achieve your ultimate business objective. And that's really the first one, is what is your business objective? So what is it that you have set yourself in this section here, and you then need to document that. What is it that you're going to achieve? What is it you're going to strive to do on a continual basis within your business? But then what is it that your team members are also going to do? And that's exactly the same thing. Everyone needs to be aligned with the core values, the vision, the targets, the steps, the plan, and obviously the key business objective that is there. And this may take you a little bit of time to actually write out yourself, but like your targets and the expectations of what you want to achieve in your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and even 10 year kind of business plan. But it's really important to narrow it down. What is the expectations? What is the overall objective? And what are you going to do? And what do you need your team members to do on a daily basis to ensure that those are met? And this is talking about your principles, your values, and decision making within the business, because you can't make all of those decisions yourself. You're going to have to allow your team members, as you grow the business, to make decisions for you and ensure that you give them all of the tools and the knowledge and the skill set over time within their role to make those decisions, and kind of think like yourself, but also to make sure that they're going to come with a good skill set, because you're going to recruit them for that specific role that you want them to do. So also making sure that you're taking on feedback and aligning the business objective and where it needs to be, ensuring that the most important aspects are covered. So, you know, who you are, what you're going to do in order to achieve that, what are your kind of operating principles, what are your systems, your working procedures, such as your standard operating manuals. So how does each task and each system work and what's required, but also making sure that it's followed at all times, because wherever you veer off or your team members veer off course, that's then when errors can happen, mistakes can happen, and it's really important that everyone follows the process to the full. Making sure that it's updated and reviewed on a continuous basis, and also making sure that kind of personnel and moral obligation is there to obviously ensure that everyone is using the right tools and resources for their role, because you may have different tools for different roles within your business, but also ensuring that they have access to them, and that's obviously your obligation there, or making sure if you've got an operations manager that they're ensuring that everything is provided in order for those personnel and those people to get the job done. You want to be the best and most efficient Amazon seller on the platform, and that's really what you want to aspire to. You want to make sure that you're trading under good health, that you are ensuring that you're sourcing on a continuous basis viable, authentic products, that you're maintaining the seller central performance of your account, the clean bill of your account, and providing and ensuring that you're monitoring kind of customer service and obviously feedback and reviews, and you're maintaining 100% kind of health record as well. Also want to be committed to your team, you want to be committed to your business, and you want your loyal, your smart, your skilled contractors, the skilled virtual assistants, and the third-party individuals that you're working with to also abide by that, to make sure that they are hardworking, they're loyal to you, they're loyal to the company, they understand the direction that the company's going in, that you want to steer them in as well, and that everyone is working and doing their part within the business to ensure that ultimately everyone is aligned and everyone's moving in the same direction. From a HR perspective, so human resource, in order for you to start with to employ or contract, should I say, your first team member, and then subsequently after that each team member that you bring into the company, whether it be a sourcing VA or a senior VA, or perhaps someone not working remotely, working actually within the same country as you and doing manual work. If you're looking to kind of take on the prepping and shipping yourself, you need to think about the HR documentation that you need, and we'll cover in a later video exactly what they are. But just for example, job descriptions are really important, but also job adverts, making sure that they're aligned and that they're clear on the expectations of the role, what that individual will be doing, but it also sets out information about your business and the types of duties on a regular basis, daily basis, monthly basis, etc., that those individuals are doing. And they can be templated so that then going forward, once you've taken on someone to almost step into your shoes as you grow the business, they can then use that documentation to do the recruitment phase for you. But it doesn't stop at the recruitment phase. It's also about performance review. You need to have reviews on a regular basis with your team members. You don't necessarily need to do them yourself if you've got someone working for you and doing that side of the business, but you need to have the templates available and the documentation available in order for that individual to actually complete that task for you. KPIs. So key performance indicators. What is it that the individuals need to do within their role, and what are their targets? So for example, a sourcing virtual assistant, what is it that is their KPIs? So they need to find X amount of deals per day, they're working X amount of days per week, and they need to deliver those deals in line with the criteria by a certain time frame. If they don't deliver the set number of deals, they don't follow criteria, and they don't provide the deals via the communication method or the sourcing sheet and communicate that by the deadline, that is then going to have a knock-on impact on the reviewing team, the purchasing team, the inventory team. So it's really important that you set within each core area of your business, the systems and processing, that everyone that's working under that specific role has and understands, has access to and understands and is happy with working towards those key performance indicators for their particular role within the business. In order for them to actually complete the tasks, so their duties on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you're going to need to have created SOMs. And these are systems operation manuals. So it's looking at what tasks have they got and they're responsible for. And each SOM will set out usually it's a Word or a Google Doc that sets out the steps. So literally, if someone coming into the business had never done that task before, let's just say, for example, dispersing money from a Seller Central account on a daily basis. If you're bringing someone in on a daily basis to help, and that's one of their key tasks, they've never done it before, you're going to need to have, and they're going to need to have access to a video perhaps that shows them the steps in how to complete that, but also a document that has the link to the video in it, and then it also has via Word format steps in order for them to take in order to achieve that without any issues. So it needs to be kind of quite concise, and you can then start to build out these SOMs over time for every single project, every single task that's both kind of intermittent, done on an ad hoc basis, but also is a recurring task that those individuals will need to complete in order to achieve the full kind of 100% completion of their role and of their daily duties. We're also looking at sourcing. Documents do the sourcing team need to have access to in order to complete their role and provide you with those deals on a daily basis. And there's various kind of software that they're going to need access to, but this is specifically documentation. So what is it that you need to give them on a and have access to remotely, so that you and the other team members can also see this information in order for them to complete their role. And it's not just the sourcing team, but it's also the reviewing team as well. So those that are reviewing the deals that the sourcing team are bringing in, what do they need to have access to? And also purchasing. So once obviously the deals are sourced, the products have been reviewed and shortlisted further, just to check that, you know, it could be that one of the sourcing VAs is accidentally not checked correctly that a product is eligible for resale, and actually they didn't check via being logged into their Amazon Seller Central account, for example. So you need to have control measures in place and obviously have documentation available in order for the review team to shortlist all of the deals that come in, because it might not just be from your virtual assistant team. You might also have access to deal services as well, or tactical arbitrage as a sourcing service option, a scanning option. So making sure that you have the reviewing team understand exactly what it is their criteria is, and they've got all of the documentation available to them so that they can carry out that job, so that when they've shortlisted those deals, they can then simply pass them over to the purchasing team and they can then go ahead and purchase. And what does the purchasing team need? Because they're doing a very, very important job. They've got access perhaps to your credit card, your PayPal account via a secure login, so whereby you're not sharing passwords. But what specifically do they need to have access to from a documentation perspective in order to achieve their daily tasks? Shipping. Now, if you're using a prep center, you're going to have shared access perhaps to some software which shows kind of what stock's going into them, and also what stock is leaving their warehouse, or you might have a Google sheet, and you're going to have documentation on that as well. So you'll need to make sure that if you've outsourced the prepping, that obviously you and all the team members that help to manage that area have got access, remote access to that documentation, whether it be the SOMs, so the standard operating manuals, or also any kind of working management sheets and documentation that they need to have access to ensure that all the products being received and sent out matches obviously what's being purchased as well. Inventory management, so looking at the inventory management from an Amazon Seller Central account. So what stock have you got going in? What stock have you got in at inventory at the moment in terms of the fulfillment centers? What stock's been purchased, and what do you need to replenish? And replenishment is a really important system. It's a process that needs to be completed quite regularly in order to maintain and ensure that you've got accurate stock levels. You've actually got stock in place for those repeats, those replenishable items, and that's a process in itself. But you're going to need to make sure that you've got business documentation available in order for the team to carry that out. Accounting as well and bookkeeping is a really important one. So of all the purchases that are being made, What other documentation do you need to have in place that you've created to ensure that you're validating the purchases, any refunds perhaps that you need to chase, invoices that you need to ensure that you've obtained from those that you've purchased. What are you going to do with that information? Do you need to upload it to a shared accountant and bookkeeping folder so that they can then do your bookkeeping for you? Or do you need to have processes in place if you're doing the bookkeeping and the accounting yourself, ready for obviously that end of year tax return? And then when you become VAT registered, you're then needing to actually pay your VAT bill on a quarterly basis, and make sure you do the submission for that as well. And also looking at senior level management. So senior level management being, you may have your senior VAs that are not purchasing VAs. You may have an operations VA in due course that actually manages the whole team for you on your behalf, that you then just meet with, and they do the team meetings. So what is it that you and they need to have access to from a documentation perspective? It could be reports, performance overview, a P&L spreadsheet, for example. So what is it that you need to have in order to see how the business is doing, and kind of what areas of the business are okay, need to be maintained better, and need to have improvement on as well, or areas of the business that you haven't actually yet fully systemized, ready for automation, and what do you actually need to create. The core area is about business systems and processes. So a system and a process is a similar thing. It's basically, you have a trigger, and then you need to get the end result. And we usually kind of explain these through flowcharts, and we'll go through each of these core sub areas of the processes that you need to have in place in a later video within your arbitrage business. But these are the main ones that you need to have set out, especially if you are looking to bring on board personnel, virtual assistants, for example, that are going to work within this process. You really need to have the process mapped out, the system available, and the documents to that system ready, so that when that individual comes on board, you know and they know exactly what needs to be done, and there's a process that they can follow. So sourcing, getting products in, sourcing products, making sure that you've got products to then review is another process. So how do you review? How do you source? And then purchasing. So once you've sourced and you've reviewed, there are steps that are required in order to successfully purchase the products in line with your criteria, to make sure that you almost think outside the box. What if an order was cancelled, for example? What is the process? If the order goes through, that's brilliant. What's the next step? Or if an order is cancelled, what's the process for that individual that is doing the purchasing? They might need to update various documents that they've got access to. They might need to notify the prep center if you're using that. They may need to do something on Amazon Seller Central account, for example, if they've already listed the product. So there's lots of things and lots of steps you need to take into consideration in order for that system to be fully validated and complete, so an individual can then do steps 1 all the way through to 100, if there's 100 steps in that process, in order to make sure that you're having a repeat 100% kind of accuracy and performance in them doing that specific system. Inventory management is also the fourth system that you need to look at. So how do you ensure that you're maintaining a clean bill of health, that you've got ample stock available for the amount of sales that you're receiving, and that will change throughout the year as well, depending on the quarter that you're purchasing and you're selling in. Looking at accounting, so what is it that you've got access to at the moment? How are you doing your books? How are you doing your annual returns? If you're VAT registered, how are you doing that? How can you streamline it, make it more efficient? Can you use a third party, especially if you're doing it yourself, because it is quite mundane and time consuming? And then what is the process for that decision that you've made? This is how we're going to do it. This is who we're going to use. This is the software we've got access to. What are the steps? What's the whole system required in order to ensure that you're 100% accurate in terms of everything you're buying, from a fixed cost to a variable cost, to also ensure that you're then filing your confirmation statement at the end of the tax year and you're submitting your tax on time, and that's accurate too. And the last one is operations. So operations being the full overview of if you have team members in place within various core areas of the business, so sourcing and purchasing, for example, who is managing that individual and what is their role? What do they need to do? Do they need to performance manage that individual? Do they need to hold meetings? Do they need to provide feedback and create and update reports on that specific area? Do they need to liaise with you as the MD or the CEO, whatever it is that you're calling yourself? Are there other areas of the business that from an operations perspective that needs to be taken into consideration too? And the final one is the business management. And this is really you after you've fully systemized and you're automating this process. So making sure that you really kind of follow these in order as well, because you need to have for each system, for example, for sourcing, you're going to need to have an objective for them. You're going to need to have resources for them. You're going to need to have business documents for them. And also then you're going to need to know, okay, how are we managing that team? And it's exactly the same for each of these processes that you see listed here. So team meetings are really important, but also one-to-ones. When are they going to take place? How many members of staff do you have at the moment? What does your personnel and your team look like in the next 12 months, and how and who is going to manage that as well? Senior level meetings. So if you're then taking on an operations manager, or perhaps you're taking on your first senior VA, are they going to be responsible for the sourcing VAs? And then you're going to have that senior level meeting with that individual. What does that look like? When does it take place? What key things do you need to have from that individual during those meetings? Because you don't want to know absolutely everything, because there's not going to be enough time during the meeting to cover that, but you want to know the key things. So how many products were shipped last week? How much are we off target from our sales? How many units did we sell? How many performance issues did we have on the Seller Central account? These are the kind of key areas that you need to know about, really, not kind of what happened and who said what and what date it was. We just need to know an overview strategically of what's happened from a performance perspective, and then obviously you can help give direction on improving on that as well. And that leads me into business performance, because really you want to ensure we're maintaining good performance, but then where possible providing feedback from the team members. How do you make it better? How do you become more efficient? How do you become more effective within the business and within all systems and the operations as a whole? And that's really kind of looking at reports. So each area is going to have a report. You want to have access to that really to start with on a weekly basis. And then over time, as you grow your team and you have an operations manager in place, you may then want to meet with them once a week, bi-weekly or monthly, depending on the amount of information that you're requesting. But reports is always a really good idea in order for you to kind of see an overview, especially before a meeting, so that then you're prepped, you're ready, you know exactly kind of what areas of improvement are required, and then you can then feed back on that to the team member that you are meeting with as well. So these are the five core areas of the business that you really need to nail and have a think about. What is it you're using currently? What is it that you need to implement? And obviously the end goal, the end goal in mind is for you to completely systemize, automate and outsource where possible within these areas. So business objective, business resources, business documentation, the business systems, the processes for each of these areas, and then the business management